Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Italy to attend G7 Outreach Summit. We'll focus on AI, energy, Africa and the Mediterranean, apart from issues crucial for the global south. G7 summit kickstarts in Italy. Centerpiece of the opening day of summit is deal on using interest from frozen Russian assets to provide $50 billion loan to Ukraine. US President Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy signed 10-year defense deal at G7 summit. Zelenskyy hails pact as a bridge to NATO membership. Special IAF plane carrying mortal remains of 45 Indians killed in Kuwait, building fire to arrive in southern Indian city of Kochi today. With an aim to address critical issues affecting the global south, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi touched down at Brindisi Airport in Apulia, Italy on June 14. India, represented by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is participating as an outreach country to discuss global south concerns and bilateral cooperation. It will be an opportunity to bring greater synergy between the outcomes of the G20 summit held under India's presidency. This is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's first foreign trip since he took oath as Prime Minister in third term. The 58th G7 summit is being held from June 13 to 15, 2024 in Apulia, Italy, with leaders from Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK and the US, along with EU representation. This is the 7th time that Italy hosts the G7. Here's an exclusive report from DD India's Amritpal Singh from Italy on G7 summit.
India is not a member of the G7 but is invited as a partner country. This is the 11th time that India has been invited. The Prime Minister's attendance will be the 5th consecutive attendance in his first overseas visit after assuming office during his third term. The Prime Minister is expected to address an outreach session of the G7 summit where he could touch upon issues related to artificial intelligence, cooperation in the Mediterranean and with the African continent, as also energy security. The Prime Minister could raise the issue of counter-terrorism in his address. The Prime Minister shall also be holding bilateral meetings with his counterparts, both from the G7 countries as well as the G7 partner countries. There are 12 partner countries that have been invited by Prime Minister Meloni for the Italy summit of G7. Prime Minister, during his meetings, bilateral meetings with his counterparts, especially with the Italian Prime Minister, would like to review the entire gamut of the relationship, be it in the sectors of defense, IT, pharmaceuticals, people-to-people contact, or even textiles and pharmaceuticals. He will also meet with British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Interestingly, he shall be holding a bilateral meeting with President Zelenskyy of Ukraine, who has been invited by Giorgia Meloni. Prime Minister Meloni has been stressing that G7 must come together to deal with the conflict of Russia-Ukraine, which is dominating the agenda here at the G7 summit. Prime Minister Modi could once again reiterate the Indian position that the solution to the conflict can only be found through dialogue and diplomacy and not through military victory. He shall also meet with the French President Emmanuel Macron, as also he could meet his counterparts from the other G7 partner countries. With cameraman Shirinder Chauhan, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Apulia, Italy.
The leaders from the group of 7 major democracies arrived in the Italian town of Borgo Egnazia in the southern region of Puglia on Thursday for the annual summit. Italian PM Giorgia Meloni received global leaders including UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, US President Joe Biden, French President Emmanuel Macron and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, among others, for the 50th G7 summit. The G7 comprises the United States, Japan, Canada, Germany, France, Italy and Britain. The European Union participates in all discussions and is represented by the presidents of both the European Council and the European Commission. The host country traditionally invites outside guests to join some of the sessions. Pope Francis, the King of Jordan, as well as the leaders of Ukraine, India, Brazil, Argentina, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, Kenya, Algeria, Tunisia and Mauritania, which holds the presidency of the African Union, will also attend the 50th G7 summit. On the opening day, the G7 reached a deal to provide around $50 billion in loans for Ukraine using the upcoming profits of frozen Russian assets. DD India's Giles Gibson reports from the Italian city of Bari.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is amongst the high-profile guests taking part in day 2 of this summit in southern Italy, alongside Pope Francis, who's made the trip down south from the Vatican to take part in a special session on artificial intelligence. We're also going to see guests including the Argentinian President Javier Milei, the Turkish leader Recep Tayyip Erdogan, as well as the heads of international organizations such as the World Bank. Really, arguably the most watched guest on day 1 of this summit was the Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who signed deals with the US and Japan, long-term security agreements, as well as calling on the G7 to provide much more financial support going forward for his country, saying that there should be a Marshall Plan for Ukraine, comparing Ukraine's recovery to the massive amounts of aid that the US provided to Europe in the wake of the Second World War. Meanwhile, the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, at the end of the first day of the summit, announced that a political deal had been reached in terms of providing a $50 billion loan to Ukraine using the profits, the future profits, of frozen Russian assets in the West. This is an agreement that has taken months to broker amongst the G7 nations in terms of its legal structure across multiple jurisdictions. And in the coming weeks, officials from the G7 nations will also have to thrash out the details in terms of legally, technically, how it's going to work. But Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, was clear that the aim is to get the funds to Ukraine by the end of this year. In Bari, Giles Gibson reporting for DD India.
US President Joe Biden and Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelenskyy signed a 10-year bilateral security agreement on Thursday aimed at bolstering Ukraine's defense against Russia's attack. The deal, signed on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Italy, aims to commit future US administrations to support Ukraine. The US-Ukraine security deal is a framework for a long-term effort to help develop Ukraine's outdated armed forces and serve as a step towards Ukraine's eventual NATO membership.
President Zelenskyy and I have just now signed that agreement between the United States and Ukraine. Our goal is to strengthen Ukraine's credible defense and deterrence capabilities for the long term. The United States.
Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelenskyy called the agreement historic, saying it's a bridge toward Ukraine's eventual NATO membership.
Today is a truly historic day, and we have signed the strongest agreement between Ukraine and the US since our independence. And this is something that will not only provide security, but also new good jobs for Ukrainians and Americans. The issue of NATO is covered through the text of the agreement. It states that America supports Ukraine's future membership in NATO and recognizes that our security agreement is a bridge to Ukraine's membership in NATO.
NATO's Secretary General is urging members of the military alliance to provide Ukraine with a guaranteed annual aid package. This comes as defense ministers are holding 2 days of meetings as part of a NATO-Ukraine Council. William Denslow reports from Brussels.
Speaking at a press conference at NATO headquarters here in Brussels, Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General for NATO, said that an annual $40 billion or so fund for Ukrainian aid on an annual basis would provide Kyiv with predictability and also would provide members with a degree more accountability as well. He said that some member states in the past had promised funding but had struggled to deliver. One prominent example is when an aid package of roughly $61 billion was held up in the US Congress for a number of months. Jens Stoltenberg says such delays have real impacts for Ukraine on the battlefield in their fight against Russia. He also says that an annual guaranteed fee would also send a very clear message to Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin that NATO's allies and Ukraine are willing to stay in the fight for as long as it takes, and they will win a war of attrition. When it comes to paying for this roughly $40 billion annual fund, well, Stoltenberg says that it will be taken into account of a country's gross domestic product, its GDP. He said that because the US is the largest country economically, it would foot around 50% of the bill. One significant hurdle that appears to be overcome by NATO Secretary General this week. He was in Budapest in the Hungarian capital. He met Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who has been incredibly sceptical of assistance for Ukraine going forward. Stoltenberg says, however, that while Viktor Orban and Hungary will not participate in this annual funding package, it will, however, not use its power of a veto on this topic. Jens Stoltenberg says there's still much work to be done when it comes to securing commitments from NATO allies, but he is hoping to commit to these long-term goals for Ukraine as we head closer to a major NATO summit scheduled in Washington, D.C. in July. William Denslow in Brussels reporting for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Donald Trump returns to Capitol Hill, a first since January 2021 riots. 7th Parliament of South Africa ready for first sitting. Record low may sea ice rings alarm bells for Canada's Hudson Bay polar bears.
Vrikshasana. Vriksha means tree. This asana makes the posture of your body steady, straight and strong, like a tree. Stand straight with your feet at a distance of 2 inches from one another. Focus on a point in front of your eyes, and then let a long, deep breath out. Carefully and slowly bend your right leg, raise it up, and rest its sole on the inner thigh of your left leg. Take extra care that your heel is touching the perineum area. After steadying yourself in this posture, take a deep breath in and slowly raise your arms over your head and join your hands so that your palms touch each other in a namaskar pose. Breathe in and out normally in this position for about 10 to 30 seconds. This asana increases the balance, steadiness, and alertness of the brain. Vrikshasana also improves your neuromuscular coordination. This asana also strengthens the muscles of the legs. People suffering from arthritis, vertigo, or obesity should refrain from doing this asana. Breathe out slowly after remaining in Vrikshasana pose for about 10 to 30 seconds, and then bring your arms down slowly. Now, lower your right leg to the ground and stand straight. Take in a deep breath and then exhale. And now, repeat the whole process with your left leg. Vrikshasana makes your body healthy along with your mind. This asana increases the alertness of your brain and helps you to complete your work with increased focus.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has returned to Capitol Hill to meet Republicans in his first visit since the riot by supporters of his at Congress 3 years ago. The presumptive Republican nominee in November's presidential election delivered a message of unity, promising to work out any lingering differences within the party. The visit comes a fortnight after Trump's criminal conviction for falsifying business records in his hush money trial in New York. Former President Trump, the party's 2024 candidate, met with Republican lawmakers to build unity ahead of the November 5 election, which could hand his party control of the White House and both chambers of Congress. Republicans hope to see Trump defeat Biden, extend their current razor-thin 218 to 213 majority in the House, and take control of a Senate that Democrats currently lead 51-49. Left-leaning political parties in France sealed an alliance to join forces in the upcoming legislative election after President Emmanuel Macron stunned the country by dissolving the lower house of parliament and calling snap elections. Political parties representing the French left wing said on Thursday they had reached an agreement to form a popular front to contest the snap parliamentary election, which will be held over the coming month. The United Left-Wing Popular Front is set to go head-to-head against the far-right's National Rally, while President Emmanuel Macron's camp is currently struggling to make headway against the two blocs. US President Joe Biden reiterated on Thursday that he would not pardon his son Hunter, who was convicted this week of lying about his drug use to buy a gun in 2018. Biden made the comments during a press conference alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on the sidelines of G7 summit in Italy. On June 11, a 12-member jury convicted Biden's son Hunter Biden of lying about his drug use to illegally buy a gun in 2018, making him the first child of a sitting US president to be convicted of a crime.
With regard to the question regarding the family, I'm extremely proud of my son Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know, and I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
The UK's opposition Labour Party has set out its manifesto ahead of the July 4th general election. The governing Conservatives accuse Labour of setting a tax trap. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservatives unveiled their manifesto on Tuesday. And DD India's Ollie Barrett compares the two.
There are certainly differences between the manifestos of the two major parties. The Labour Party acknowledges that it is going to put up taxes in some areas, for example, extending windfall taxes on oil and gas companies' profits to pay for some of its spending pledges. The Conservatives, in their manifesto, did announce a cut to the national insurance earnings tax, and they accuse Labour of considering and planning to potentially put up taxes if they get into government. That is a characterisation that the Labour Party would deny, but there is certainly a difference between the two parties on taxation policy. When it comes to migration, both parties are pledging to bring down net migration, but in different ways. The Labour Party says that it would scrap the government's planned Rwanda migration scheme. The Conservatives say that they would get planes to Rwanda up into the air after July the 4th with migrants on them to pursue their asylum claims in Rwanda and not in the UK. There are other areas of difference as well, but there are quite a lot of ways in which the parties, according to the polling, the electorate feel are actually quite similar and are playing from the centrist position when it comes to this election. All of the polling suggests that the Labour Party are well set to potentially win a large majority on July the 4th, but the Conservatives insist that the fight is still on. Rishi Sunak, the UK Prime Minister, has the opportunity to look like a leader on the international stage as the G7 summit continues in Italy. The downside for him is that it means for a couple of days he's away from the UK campaign trail. Ollie Barrett in London, reporting for DD India.
Reform UK overtakes PM Sunak's Conservatives in opinion poll. Ahead of Britain's election on July 4, Reform UK leader declared his party the opposition to Labour after an opinion poll showed it had overtaken the Conservatives for the first time. The survey, which involved 2,211 participants and was carried out from June 12 to 13, revealed that Reform UK garnered 19% support, a 2% increase from their previous standing, while the Conservatives remained unchanged at 18%.
What I will do, if you give me the honour of being your Member of Parliament, I will stand up and fight for people. I will stand up and fight for small businesses against the regulators. I will stand up and fight for people to get their rights. I will stand up and fight to make sure that schools are not poisoning the minds of your children.
And South Africa's first sitting of the National Assembly and National Council of Provinces will be held at the Cape Town International Convention Centre on Friday. The sitting will see members of parliament convening to elect their speaker and deputy speaker and the country's president. Political parties in South Africa are still negotiating to form a government of national unity after the ANC failed to win an outright majority in the general elections. The ANC was holding last-minute talks with other parties on Thursday to thrash out a deal on who will be included in South Africa's next government. President Cyril Ramaphosa, the ANC leader, is expected to win a new term in office, but the composition of the new government remains unclear. The United Nations Security Council has called for an immediate halt to the siege of Al-Fashir by the Rapid Support Forces and an end to all fighting in the area. The Council's resolution also demands the withdrawal of fighters threatening civilian safety. The 15-member council adopted a British-drafted resolution that also calls for the withdrawal of all fighters who threaten the safety and security of civilians in Al-Fashir. War erupted in Sudan in April last year between the Sudanese army and the RSF, triggering the world's largest displacement crisis. The ongoing war in Sudan has resulted in a major displacement crisis. The British-drafted resolution received 14 votes in favour, while Russia abstained. Spain and Turkey on Thursday signed 13 agreements in Madrid in the areas of science, energy, professional training and commerce. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan was received at Spain's Moncloa Palace with military honours and later held a bilateral meeting with Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez as part of the 8th Spain-Turkey high-level meeting. The leaders signed a series of agreements and held a press conference after the meeting was over. The bilateral summit was focused on strengthening economic cooperation between the Mediterranean countries. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan hailed Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez for his stance on Gaza conflict. Speaking about Gaza, Sanchez said both Turkey and Spain agreed on the immediate need for a ceasefire. Now, to protest against incarceration conditions and delays in reviews of judicial processes, inmates in at least 16 Venezuelan prisons are staging hunger strikes. Overcrowding, poor health conditions and food scarcity are among the issues plaguing Venezuelan prisons. President Nicolas Maduro on Tuesday replaced country's head of penitentiary affairs, appointing Julio Zerpa in the midst of the strikes. The US Supreme Court has unanimously rejected an effort to restrict access to the abortion pill mifepristone. The decision, which came 2 years after the court rescinded the nationwide guarantee to an abortion, was welcomed by pro-choice activists. The justices decided the plaintiffs, a group of anti-abortion doctors and activists, did not have a legal right to sue, but they left the door open to other attempts to limit the availability of the drug. Mifepristone is one of 2 drugs used in medication abortion, now the most common method of terminating pregnancies in the US. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva said on Thursday that democracy was at risk after far-right surge in EU vote. Addressing an event of the International Labour Organization event in Geneva, Lula said that we have a problem of democracy as we know it being a risk. Lula also reaffirmed Brazil's commitment to completely halt deforestation in the Amazon by 2030. Central and southern Chile continues to grapple with heavy floods that has left over 4,000 people homeless. Residents are reeling with the aftermath of the downpour as they continue to clean the mud from their homes. Government's disaster office has evacuated hundreds of people from buildings near the shore. The hardest hit regions include Maube, Biobío and Araucania. Torrential downpours transformed roads into waterways in Spain's Murcia. The heavy rainfall, which lasted for several hours, overwhelmed drainage systems, leading to significant flooding in the region. Planes were grounded on flooded runways at the airport of the capital of the Spanish island as heavy rain swept over the popular tourist destination. Cleanup work began across southeastern Florida after storms and floods ravaged the region. Heavy precipitation dumped rainwater of up to 18 to 25 inches of rain since Monday. The weather authorities predicts of more torrential downpours to deluge South Florida. Areas including portions of Broward and Miami have been put at risk of life-threatening flooding. Well, let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. The wreckage of a private plane that carried 5 men in 1971 disappeared after taking off in poor weather conditions has been found in Vermont's Lake Champlain. Families of the victims hope that discovery will finally bring closure after decades of uncertainty. Police searched downtown Houston for a suspect who escaped courthouse custody on Thursday. Officials ordered a lockdown at the nearby University of Houston as a precautionary measure. According to the assistant chief, the suspect was in custody for 3 burglaries. Under current climate warming scenarios, polar bears in Canada could face further starvation and eventual extinction in the coming decades. 3 of the world's remaining 19 polar bear populations live in Canada's vast Hudson Bay, which connects to the Arctic and Atlantic Oceans. Authorities worry that the current climate crisis could affect the habitat of extincting species. China's captive giant pandas returned to the wild. The National Forestry says these reserves are effectively protecting over 60% of wild giant panda populations. These reintroductions are part of a broader strategy to boost the wild panda population and enhance genetic diversity. Madame Tussauds London prepares the wax figure of famous actor Nsuti Gatwa. The process of creating the wax figure involves taking hundreds of precise measurements to ensure an accurate representation. Gatwa's wax figure to unveil at Madame Tussauds in London this summer. And still to come on DD Indian News Hour. The search operation launched in Jammu and Kashmir enters 5th day on Thursday. A social group in India's Raipur creates a mini forest. Stay tuned for more details. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to review the preparedness of Indian Navy's Eastern Fleet.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj and a quick recap of the headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Italy to attend G7 Outreach Summit. Will focus on AI, energy, Africa and the Mediterranean, apart from issues crucial for the Global South. G7 summit kickstarts in Italy. Centerpiece of the opening day of summit is deal on using interest from frozen Russian assets to provide $50 billion loan to Ukraine. US President Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy signed 10-year defense deal at G7 summit. Zelenskyy hails pact as a bridge to NATO membership. Special IF plane carrying mortal remains of 45 Indians killed in Kuwait building fire to arrive in southern Indian city of Kochi today. An Indian Air Force special aircraft carrying the mortal remains of 45 nationals who lost their lives in the tragic fire incident in Kuwait will arrive in southern Indian city of Kochi today. Accompanying the remains is Minister of State External Affairs Kirti Vardhan Singh, who worked closely with Kuwaiti authorities to ensure the swift repatriation process. The Indian minister on Thursday visited hospital in Kuwait and checked about the well-being of Indians who were injured in the tragic fire incident. Later, the minister met Health Minister of Kuwait and Deputy Prime Minister, discussing the steps taken to ensure speedy recovery of Indians under his personal supervision. MOS thanked them for exceptional medical care and attention being provided to the Indians. The mortal remains would be handed over to concerned state government representatives in Kochi and Delhi. The aircraft carrying mortal remains of deceased will first land in Kochi, as most of victims are from Kerala, before proceeding to Delhi for the victims from northern states. Among the victims, 24 were from Kerala, with others hailing from Tamil Nadu, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. Kuwaiti authorities have already conducted DNA tests on the bodies as part of the identification process. Kerala government has arranged ambulances to transport the mortal remains to their respective homes upon arrival.
We made all the required arrangements for receiving the bodies of the victims, and we have arranged the required number of ambulances, and the ambulances will be piloted to their destinations with a proper police unit.
All right, and DD India correspondent Vinod Kumar joins us for more on this. Vinod, good morning.
Good morning.
After the tragic incident, an Air Force special aircraft carrying the mortal remains of 45 nationals will arrive in southern Indian city of Kochi. What's the latest you're getting for us?
Well, this fire incident, which has cast a somber shadow over both the expatriate community in Kuwait and India, has highlighted severe safety lapses. Of the 50 people, which is presumed to be dead, one is not yet confirmed, 45 are from India and 23 is from our state of Kerala. Kuwait's Interior Minister Sheikh Fahad has vowed to address the issues of labor overcrowding and neglect, warning that any buildings violating safety regulations will face closure. Yesterday, 2 persons are remanded by the Kuwait public prosecution. One is a local Kuwaiti citizen and the other is an expatriate, which is our Kerala-based businessman and the owner of this building, which was gutted in the fire. This blaze, which devastated a 6-story building, was exacerbated by around 24 gas cylinders on the ground floor and inflammable materials. So this is presumed to be one of the causes of this accident, and many organizations, including Lulu Group here, has given a relief of 5 lakh rupees. This NBTC, this company, was directed by the Kuwaiti government to give a relief of 8 lakh for each affected of the kin. And our union government and the Kerala state government has also given the relief of 5 lakh and 2 lakh respectively.
Okay. Yes, continue.
As we
please.
speak now, this Indian aircraft IAF aircraft C-130J is en route to Kochi, and by this time, 8:30 today morning, it will touch down. As we speak, it must have just touched down. So we need to hear more inputs from our state of Kerala.
Okay. Now, Vinod, there have been speculations on what actually caused the incident. You were just telling us any information on that, what actually caused the incident?
Yes,
because
yes,
some people saying
the fire force, which is called the civil defense here, has taken an inspection of the area, and the cause has been attributed to electrical malfunction, and inflammable materials were stored in the kitchen on the ground floor. So these are the two things which triggered the fire. And on a broader context, Siddharth, I must tell you that for the sake of our viewers, many conditions that prevailing in the current environment are conducive to fire. For example, here in this Arabian Peninsula, especially Kuwait, and this entire peninsula is a desert area, and the average temperatures are quite high. So the geography itself is very conducive for heat, and for any fire incident to happen, there has to be a necessary and a sufficient condition. The necessary condition is that there is some sort of a trigger in the form of a short circuit or an electric malfunction, or it can come from a gas, or it can come from human negligence. The sufficient factor is that enough combustible materials has to be around. In this case, combustible materials was reported to be around, like cardboards. The partition of the rooms were made out of flammable material like cardboards, paper, and other daily use items, curtains and clothes were reported to be there. For a general context, as the temperature of the entire globe is warming due to global warming, more and more of ACs we are using, especially in a country like India or world over. We are using more and more conditions, and this causes a load bearing of the electrical circuit of our buildings. For example, we might be having a rated load of 2 kilowatts. If you approach that 2 kilowatt or more, the electrical circuitry of your house or any industrial area will not be able to take a bear. And over a long period of time, unlike the buildings of the past means 1,000 years.
Definitely, precautions are to be, taken.
Has to be taken.
Definitely. Vinod, thank you for all those details. Well, India rejected unwarranted references to Jammu and Kashmir in a recent joint statement by China and Pakistan. India criticized the mention of projects under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor in the statement on Thursday and said New Delhi rejects any move to legitimize Islamabad's illegal occupation of territory. In response to media queries, Ministry of External Affairs stated that we have noted unwarranted references to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir in the joint statement between China and Pakistan of 7th of June 2024. We categorically reject such references. Our position on the issue is consistent and well known to the concerned parties. The Union Territories of Jammu and Kashmir and the Union Territory of Ladakh have been, are and will always remain integral and inalienable parts of India. No other country has the locus standi to comment on the same. Now, the search operation launched in Jammu and Kashmir to track down and neutralize terrorists after the June 9 attack on a bus carrying pilgrims entered the 6th day on Friday. Terrorists struck at 4 places in Riyasi, Katwa and Doda districts over the past few days, killing 9 pilgrims and a CRPF Jawan and leaving 7 security personnel and several others injured. 2 suspected Pakistani terrorists were also killed in an encounter with security forces in Katwa, and a large quantity of arms and ammunition were recovered from them. Meanwhile, the search operation is underway in Riyasi as well as adjoining Rajouri district. Searches are also being conducted in Naushera in Rajouri and adjoining Poonch. Security forces have also been put on alert in Katwa, Samba and Jammu districts in view of intelligence inputs about a possible terror threat. Police security tightened in Jammu and Kashmir after terror attack. Police conducted thorough vehicle checks by halting vehicle security. Has been increased following the 3 significant attacks in Jammu and Kashmir, the Riyasi terror attack. Now, to further enhancing maritime security, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to visit Visakhapatnam today. On his visit, Defence Minister will review the preparedness of Indian Navy's Eastern Fleet. The Eastern Fleet is a naval fleet of the Indian Navy. It's known as the sword arm of the Eastern Naval Command and called the Sunrise Fleet. It is headquartered at Visakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh, on the east coast of India. And India's Ministry of Culture organizes special summer classes on visual and performing arts at National Gallery of Modern Art in New Delhi. DD India correspondent Kriti Vadhera has more on this.
Art enthusiasts and creative minds have a lot to look forward to this summer. The Ministry of Culture has organized a series of summer classes at National Gallery of Modern Art, offering workshops in art, craft, pottery, printmaking and theatre.
The idea behind that this is the time of the interdisciplinary thing. So students can know about the quality of the artwork, the aesthetics of the artwork, the technique of the artwork, like sculpture, like pottery, like printmaking, like painting, or as well as the performing art also. See, in contemporary Indian art, so many important artists are there doing performing with the visual arts. They make installation with the performing art, So this is the idea we'll try to, convey with the students also.
The National Gallery of Modern Art in New Delhi is buzzing with activities as it rolls out an extensive program of workshops. The initiative aims to foster creativity and provides hands-on experience in various art forms.
I feel very nice about the classes. I feel that as if I am retaining all my past and happy memories in this art class. I already knew painting, but I didn't know how to do perfect painting. Like, I have learned how to now paint without the color coming out of the line. And I have learned how to make things out of a circle, square and be creative.
I feel that these art classes wake up the inner soul. And they also enlighten us and encourage us to move a step forward in painting.
From the tactile art of pottery to the intricate process of printmaking, each workshop offers a unique experience. Puppetry classes teach the delicate art of handmade creations, while theatre workshops encourage self-expression and performance skills. These workshops not only provide an avenue of artistic exploration, but also promote cultural heritage and community. Whether you are a professional artist or maybe just someone who wants to explore something new, these summer classes at National Gallery of Modern Art in New Delhi have something for everyone. It is a wonderful opportunity to unleash your creativity. With camera person Ashish, I am Kriti Vadhera reporting from New Delhi for DD India.
World Blood Donor Day is observed on June 14 every year to raise awareness about the importance of blood donation and to urge more people to donate blood. 20 years of celebrating giving. Thank you, blood donors. The theme of this year's World Blood Donor Day expresses deep gratitude to all the blood donors who helped save many lives. If a person develops a blood-related disorder, is injured grievously, there is a need for blood transfusion. In diseases like thalassemia, sickle cell disease and hemophilia, blood transfusion is required at regular intervals. Blood donation is a simple process which takes about 20 minutes. Every healthy person can donate blood once in 3 months. 1 unit of blood can save the lives of 4 people. And let's take a look at other stories making news. A social group in India's Raipur creates a mini forest using the Miyawaki concept that provides 30% more oxygen and also functions as an air purifier, helping to boost biodiversity in the region. These are 2,500 different types of trees in the mini forest. In response to the increasing threat of heat waves and extreme heat, the Kutch Forest Department has initiated special measures to protect wildlife in Gujarat's dense forests. The department has installed additional water troughs and regularly refills natural and artificial water bodies to ensure that animals have constant access to hydration. Indian Air Force Mi-17 V5 helicopters launched from Sarsava at first light to conduct Bambi bucket operations to douse the raging fires in Almora district. The operation was initiated following an urgent request from the state administration to combat the uncontrollable blaze at the Binsar Wildlife Sanctuary in Almora. Ayush, a student from Meerut, innovatively designed a smart helmet aimed at enhancing the safety of bike riders. This intelligent helmet incorporates a crucial safety feature that prevents the bike from starting unless rider is wearing the helmet. This development not only promotes responsible riding habits but also significantly reduces the risk of head injuries in accidents. And still to come on the Indian News Hour. Celebrating a timeless practice of yoga that celebrates oneness and harmony. Tesla shareholders approved CEO Elon Musk's $56 billion pay package. Bangladesh beat Netherlands by 25 runs in Group D T20 World Cup match on Thursday. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. And now to all the updates on the International Yoga Day, which will be celebrated on 21st of June. In the light of the upcoming International Day of Yoga on June 21st, renowned yoga therapist Mr. V. Satyanarayana shared his expert insights on yoga and its profound effects on mental health. With 25 years of experience, Mr. Satyanarayana is dedicated to treating life diseases and advocating freedom from medications through the practice of yoga. The therapeutic benefits of yoga are extensive, encompassing physical, mental and emotional health. Physically, yoga improves flexibility, strength and coordination, enhances blood circulation and aids in weight management. In Uttarakhand, the Aao Hum Sab Yoga Kare, which means let's come together for yoga campaign, is currently being conducted across various locations in Almora, Pithoragarh, Bageshwar and Champawat districts. As part of this campaign, yoga instructors are visiting various government and semi-government schools to teach students about different aspects of yoga. You're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for business. Tesla shareholders have voted to reinstate CEO Elon Musk's pay package worth up to $56 billion. It's the largest pay deal in corporate US history. but was struck down by a judge in January, citing its size. Tony Waterman has more from outside the Tesla Gigafactory in Austin, where the vote took place on what it could mean for India.
As you'd imagine, Elon Musk had a lot of pep in his step when he took the stage at the shareholders meeting held at the Gigafactory right here behind me. He told the crowd that he loved them, and he said that he could grow the company tenfold again, which is an amazing feat and part of the reason why he was eligible for this record-breaking payout. This vote was really a vindication for Musk, who has been battling in the courts to get his due. A judge in Delaware threw out the deal in January. She called it unfathomable, and she also raised concerns about the independence of Tesla's board, which struck the deal with Musk back in 2018. Now, even though shareholders have given their blessing, it does not mean that Musk will automatically get the Tesla shares owed to him. His legal team will first need to convince that very skeptical Delaware judge that nullified the deal to reinstate it. So it could be many, many more months before Musk can exercise the stock options in this deal, if at all. What the vote does do, though, is that it gives Musk a mandate, a permission slip to continue to lead the company the way he sees fit. And he has made it very clear that, at least in part, Tesla's future lies in India. He's been pushing aggressively to expand in the country as sales slump in China. And there have been reports that Tesla could, among other things, invest upwards of $3 billion in a new factory in India. Tony Waterman in Austin, Texas, reporting for DD India.
Kenya's finance minister on Thursday presented the East African nation's biggest ever budget alongside contentious tax proposals. Finance minister presented $31.1 billion budget for 2024-25 to Parliament. He also submitted a separate finance bill and cut the budget deficit to 3.3% of GDP from 5.7% this year. The bill contains a host of tax hikes expected to hit the financial services, manufacturing and retail sectors. Presenting the budget in Parliament, he said, Kenya's budget aims to tackle the country's debt while protecting its fragile economic recovery. Argentina's monthly inflation rate gets the lowest since 2022 amid a tough austerity drive by their libertarian President Milei. After the poverty rate soared above 50%, Argentina's economy is stalling at the face of the government's tough austerity measures. The immediate economic challenges present significant hurdles. The monthly inflation rate is also to fall for the fifth consecutive month, signaling a potential stabilization of prices. And time now for sport. Sri Lanka have been eliminated from the Super 8 stage after Bangladesh beat Netherlands by 25 runs in a crucial Group D T20 World Cup match on Thursday. Bangladesh were boosted by Shakib Al Hassan's unbeaten 64 to set a 116-run target for Netherlands. In reply, the Dutch managed 134 for 8 in 20 overs. Bangladesh's win over Netherlands saw them reach 4 points from 3 matches in Group D. Sri Lanka on 1 point after 3 games can at best reach 3 points. Meanwhile, South Africa have already advanced from the same group. And India's Divya Deshmukh added another significant title to her already impressive collection by winning the World Junior Girls Chess Championship 2024 on Thursday. The 18-year-old from Nagpur beat Bulgaria's Beloslava Krasteva in the final round at the Gift City Club in Chandigarh. The top-seeded Divya finished with 10 points out of possible 11 as she remained unbeaten, winning 9 games and drawing 2. Meanwhile, the title in the open section was claimed by Kazakhstan's Kazbek Norgebek. Rafael Nadal confirmed that he will not take part in the Wimbledon 2024 championships in order to prepare for the Paris 2024 Olympics starting in July. The 38-year-old is a record 14 times winner of the French Open. However, he has been far from his best after returning from injuries, and he exited the tournament at Roland Garros. Nadal, who won an Olympic singles gold medal in 2008 and a doubles gold in 2016, will team up with Carlos Alcaraz to play in the doubles at the Olympics. A twice champion at Wimbledon, Nadal said he would continue his preparations for the Olympics by playing in the ATP 250 clay court event in Sweden that will be played from July 15. The Bundesliga club said on Thursday that Borussia Dortmund head coach Eden Terzic will leave his job with immediate effect after asking for his contract to be terminated. Terzic took over as coach on a permanent basis in 2022. He led Dortmund to the Champions League final last season, where they lost to Real Madrid at London's Wembley Stadium. They finished 5th in the Bundesliga, qualifying for the next season's Champions League. Terzic also won the German Cup in 2021 when he was briefly appointed as interim coach. The Olympic flame reached the island of Tahiti on Thursday as the Olympic torch relay dazzled onlookers at the beach that will be hosting Olympic surfing events for Paris 2024 Games. The flame was carried by boat to the surf spot where Olympic surfers will compete for gold when the Summer Games kick off in July. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.